In today's episode, once again, we speak to the beautiful, the amazing Nafisa Allen. Nafisa is a trained migration scholar and a multicultural communications expert with over 15 years of governmental expertise. Dr. Nafisa Allen elevates diverse perspectives into well-researched mainstream editorial content. Her business focuses on ghostwriting, magazine writing, book editing, content and copywriting for startups, as well as ongoing business writing for venture and private equity firms. She's a regular contributor to acclaimed publications like Forbes, Real Simple, Better Homes and Gardens, Dwell House Beautiful, as well as Huffington Post. Let's speak to Nafisa and find out how you can create a life by design. Let's find out. And remember, if you want to elevate your money mindset, then click on the link www.millionairefoundations.com and watch my free training. Welcome. This is Gul Khan, your money mindset expert. And once again, we have the amazing, the beautiful, the charming Nafisa Allen. Welcome, Nafisa.
Hi, Gul. So great to be here with you.
Thank you so much for coming back, Nafisa. We had such a wonderful conversation on Friday feature. Now we had to have you back for Money Talkies. Now, Nafisa, everyone's heard your intro once again, so they know how amazing you are. But please, in your own words, tell everybody what it is that you do.
Hi, everybody. I'm Dr. Nafisa Allen. I am an independent researcher and writer. I run an editorial strategy and content business. In addition to being a world traveler and nomad mom, I have 2.5 kids. I'm pregnant now. And my husband and I have traveled around the world with my career. And thankfully, I've been able to build businesses that travel with me. So looking forward to sharing more about that today.
Wonderful. So that leads us on to today's topic, which is how to create a life by design. Now, we touched upon this on Friday, and you really have created a life by design. So you've got this amazing job, which takes you all over the world, and you get to experience different cultures, different communities, working as a diplomat. At the same time, you've built this amazing business around your family and around your work. So talk us through, how does someone start with this? Talk us through how does someone start? I mean, this isn't right for everybody. So let's be very clear. Everyone has a different idea of what they want to create. So if someone has a life that they want to create, how do they even begin this process?
Yeah, well, I think most of us, folks like me, who kind of fell into this, usually there's a rupture of some sort, right? There's something that happens where your life as you imagined it is not adding up to whatever dreams you had. And for me, that really happens around 2019, 2020. I had my second child. Work was getting really, really hard. I had a lot of pregnancy sort of issues happening in the office that I really struggled with, and just had a huge identity rupture with my job, and thought, okay, I've got to rethink this. And of course, like most people, I thought, oh my God, I'm going to quit this thing today. I'm, leaving right now and stomping out of the door. But of course, I had just had a new baby, and thought, I can't afford to do that. And instead, thankfully, I found, folks like you and others who really just helped me think about, why did I get into this in the first place? I did this because I've always loved living abroad. I've always loved communications. And I thought I'd be able to, for the long haul, design a life where I could do both. And I didn't feel like I was giving anything up. And I'd always said, I'm quitting this job whenever I feel like it's getting in the way of living. I'm going to quit my job. And a few of my friends were like, is now the time? Is now the time? And I thought, maybe it's just a matter of mindset and being strategic about where I live, where I go, the types of things I allow at work, and the boundaries I place around myself. And maybe I can get that back. And so I took about 6 to 8 months of just, storyboarding, just brainstorming, whiteboarding, reading every possible book on entrepreneurship, every possible book on productivity, and came up with a few that I absolutely love that kind of changed my life. And with that, just tried to figure out what were the skills that I really, really, really wanted to dig into that I wasn't really doing at my day job that I wanted to give to the world. And so with that and those, big ideas, I launched a business, an editorial strategy business that really does encompass all those passions. And I found that doing that during, my quote unquote off hours, has been really like empowering and rejuvenating and really refreshing in a way that still allows me to enjoy my day job and give the best there, but also have an outlet for the things that I really need to keep going and feeling energized as a creative person.
I mean, you seem to have the ideal scenario where you're able to really enjoy your day job. You really do well in that. But there were some elements of you were frustrated and upset and a bit unsatisfied with the day job. And once you were able to have an creative outlet for your creativity and so forth, it made you, as I think you mentioned in the last segment, it made you a nicer person at work too, because now you were no longer frustrated. You're no longer annoyed, with not having that creative aspect to it, whereas because you can channel that in your business. At the same time, so you can give your business, your job, the dedication and the mind, the headspace rather to do whatever needs to be done. And then your creativity and everything else that you lacked in your job, you're able to channel into your business, and therefore you had best of both worlds. Now it takes a lot of discipline to be able to do this, especially with a young family. So when someone listens to this can say, well, okay, Nafisa, maybe you're just the odd one out. You can, balance your job with a side business. I don't know how to do that, and I've got a young family as well. What would you say to that?
Yeah. I would say for me, the journey really started with productivity hacking. And it took a really long time for me to make space in my life for another business, and even for the kids, honestly. I think I was pouring so much of my personal sense of value into my job for so long that I just couldn't imagine that I would ever have the time for kids or ever have the time to be a creative. Yeah. And I'll say one of the books that really got me was called Essentialism. And I don't know if you've ever read it, but the book is really about thinking about your legacy 100 years after you've died. And it's thinking, is anybody going to remember me for having swept the floors, on a Friday night before my friends came over for a party? Is anybody going to remember that time I sent that, nasty email about, hey, you didn't turn this thing in on time? Like, it's really these big, massive, legacy building activities that people are going to remember about you, long after you're gone. And I think that book just kind of woke me up out of the minutia of, hey, you don't have to dig in so deep on every little thing at work and feeling like, this is going to be who you are and how people are going to think of you, right? I had to kind of let a lot of that go and make space for, what did I really want my legacy to be? And so a lot of that was in the creative space. I'm thinking of, being the Basquiat's or, the people who've written these amazing books, right? And we still read them 100 years after they've gone. And for me, I thought I want to be able to leave that big, aha creativity for people to see, to enjoy. And I think my kids are part of that too, right? In a way, they're what I leave the world. And so I had to kind of take a step back, make space for those things and those experiences in my own life. And I feel like, again, I kind of go back to the office with a lot more of a measured approach, right? Yeah. Like, we've got time. I don't have to push. We don't have to force, right? There's ease here, right? There can be grace around the ways that we work together, and we can do great things without having to constantly feel like our identity's on the line. And for me, that took an awful lot of time, but here we are. And I think I've come out stronger on the other side, and frankly, just really excited about what I can build, right? My companies, I'm hiring people. I'm bringing on teams that are learning this as well, and mainly women around the world, and being able to teach them the same, as they start to dig in. I'm like, hey, chill out, like, we got this, I got your back. And I can create a work environment at my company that I think mimics what I wished I had earlier on in my career experience. So it's been a beautiful journey, but it was not easy.
No, I wouldn't have thought so anyway. Now, talking a bit more about this idea of making space, because I love that. I think if somebody is looking at creating a life by design, you have to make space for it. And I go to the old, I remember when we used to do this, Millionaire Mindset Makeover Challenges, which is right back from 2018, 19, whatever. I remember the thing that I used to talk about quite a lot was making space in your life. And I talked about money. So in terms of, decluttering and so forth. But if you take that principle into this element, it's the right thing. So if your life is so occupied with everything you're doing, there's no space for new things to show up. So you have to make space for it. So I love the fact that you said, I made space for it in my life by, reading productivity books and other things, and realize I'm wasting my time. Your time's going to be taken up by either books or TV or something mundane or gossip. It will be taken up. There's no way around it. And so when you're creating a life by design, you can make space and choose, what you're going to be spending your day on. But I think far too many people say, I don't have the time, I'm too busy. And they ignore the fact that they are wasting hours, precious hours in their life by not making space for their ideal life and, creating a life by design. I absolutely love that comment. I absolutely love it. The next thing I want to ask is, okay, so if someone is like, is thinking, okay, Nafisa, I've read books like Essentialism, and I've eliminated all my, time that I'm wasting. I'm still doing my 9 to 5. It takes me an hour to commute there and an hour to come back. And in the commute, I'm either reading a book or listening to an audio book or something. So I'm doing all the learning, and I've got 3 hours in the evening, but there isn't much time. I work and work and work, and I don't see the results. How do I, persevere through this? How do I see the light at the end of the tunnel if all I see is darkness around me? And that is the case with a lot of people when they first start off doing the business.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, number one, I think it's first just acknowledging that the trauma response is there, right? I think a lot of us are facing, feelings of, survivorship, right? Like, if we don't go to work, we're not going to be able to pay our bills.
Exactly.
It feels very, very, existential. Our financial freedom and our financial dependence on our careers. And I think first and foremost, you just have to acknowledge that is true. Because if you try to chase your tail on it being anything else, you're gonna run yourself ragged without just recognizing that, these pressures are here. These pressures are what you're trying to cope with. You're doing your level best. You're probably exhausted. You're probably burned out. All of those things are absolutely true. And a certain level of, letting yourself acknowledge that and knowing it's not your fault is really important. So, taking that time. The other part, I feel like, is recognizing that there's only so much, same thing, we talked about this before, time and money, right? There's only so much time in the day. So if you are trying to tie your earnings to how many hours you're working, you will never have enough. It's just not going to work, right? If
100%,
$1,000 an hour, right? You're
100%.
still going to run into a wall and go, darn, I wish I was making more. So you have to really think about the ways that you can earn without having to constantly give service of your time in exchange. And I will say, this is something that comes up a lot for women. Women tend to get into service-oriented businesses as opposed to product-oriented businesses. So often we're trying to trade, an hour of our editing time or an hour of our coaching time in exchange for whatever we're offering, right? As opposed to something that can be offered digitally or something that can be offered by, mail or shipped, which doesn't require any more of our time other than creating that product from the beginning. So I think it's definitely a mindset shift that has to happen. But once you kind of carve out your time, you have to really think about your energy, right? Like, what gives you energy? As a writer, I will stay up until like 3 a.m. and like wake up rejuvenated at 5 a.m. if I was writing. If I am doing literally anything else, including some of the minute tasks of my real estate business until 3 a.m., I am dead. I am not waking up until 5 p.m. the next day, because that's just not what gives me energy. So I think if you're really trying to think about ways to maximize your income, find the right things to put your limited amount of time into, it has to be things that really feel energetically strong for you and make you sort of recuperate some of that draining that's coming out of your other activities.
I think I think you just hit the nail on the head. I wish I can give credit to it. I think maybe it's been Brock Proctor who said, if you make what you love as part of your role, as a job, as a way to make money, you will never work a day in your life because you have fun doing what you do. And I remember when I first heard this, I thought, really? Because we've all grown up with the idea that job needs to be hard. It's something that you don't like, it's something that you don't enjoy, and it should be painful. Because it's not something explicit, it's something we've internalized. So everyone complains about the job. And it doesn't matter if you're a doctor, lawyer, architect, you can really be interested in those disciplines initially, but once it becomes a job, it's just a job, and everyone complains about the job. Now, if you can do something that you absolutely love and adore, then somehow that's wrong. But that's what you need to. That's what you need to do to create it. And so, when I look in my own life, I have multiple different businesses, and I know exactly what you mean. If I dealt with the real estate, oh my God, that drives me crazy. Dealing with tenants and other things and estate agents, oh my God, that just drains me so much. And then, you know, I've got my other business that I'm doing, and that's not so bad either. It's okay. But the role, the business that gets me the most energized and brings me the most joy and happiness is my coaching business. And for that reason, I've kept it going, even though there were multiple times where I could have let go and done something else. And, you know, my podcast, we're not monetizing at the moment, hardly anything. So I do it because of my passion, because I love talking to entrepreneurs like yourself, and I love putting my, you know, heart and soul into it. So the things which bring me most joy, I'm not fussed about making money, but whereas I know in the long run, my podcast, whatever, will be very, very profitable. We've got the million downloads or whatever else, and recognition is coming our way, but I've not run after it. I've never asked for it because I love doing it. So when I'm doing this, even this, I'm recording this episode on when it's actually Eid, by the way, Eid Mubarak, by the way, I forgot to say that to you as well. Yeah, we're both working on Eid, but it doesn't feel like work. It feels like I'm having a conversation with a friend, which we are. So it's when you take what you are passionate about and incorporate it into a business that you can monetize. That's when you never work, because you're having fun all the time. You're enjoying it. It energizes you, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think you brought up a lot of really good points. I think it's almost a generational shift. I have been mentoring a number of people lately, and they've been talking to me like, oh my God, when did you know that your career was your passion? And I was like, what? I didn't know my career was is it my passion? I agree. Like, I kind of grew up with, mentors and people around me who were like, you're not supposed to love your job, right? Mm-hmm. Like, your job is a thing that you do well, you give yourself of service, but you're not supposed to cry about it on a Saturday night, right? Like, that's not what this is supposed to be. You're supposed to do, and I grew up with boomers, I think they often worked in, sort of like really technical careers where it wasn't about I'm going to be the CEO of this company. It was just I need a paycheck. I'm going to, feed my family, and I'm going to do good work during that time.
Yeah.
So I feel like for me, I was often around people who were very deeply passionate about, everything we were doing. And I felt really out of place being like, no, I'm satisfied with this. Like, this is fine, but I am not, I'm not going home crying about it. But there came a point, I think, in the middle of my career where I felt like I had to do some I don't know, I had to show loyalty through feeling very, very, very dedicated to this work. I had to give everything, right? I think I came into it being like, oh no, it's fine. It's a great job. It pays the bill. It's fine. It's cool. No big deal. And then at some point, I don't know, I got into leadership roles where I had to lead teams. I had to inspire people. And at some point, I think I don't know, I don't want to say bring much myself, but at some point I really got into I am this title, right? I'm not a person, but I'm a title. And that took a really long time to just kind of wash away and just go, no, right? You're the same little girl who wanted to travel the world and, meet people and eat strange food and, tell people about your culture and learn about theirs. At some point, you got to walk away from all of the trappings of, whatever success kind of looks like and sounds like. And I realized, I don't have to embody a title. I can just do great work, be myself, be honest, be authentic, and show up. And actually, I enjoy doing that. That's fun. That's what I want to do. But again, I think when people really think about how much they have to give to their careers or what they feel like is the social contract they have with their colleagues or even their institutions, you can overgive. You can give to a point where, we've talked about this before, you look at your hourly rate and you're like, oh my God, we're overworking so much that my hourly rate is like a pittance because, you know, I overwork, I give too much, and I'm drained. It's not quality at that point either, right? Especially where I work, it's creative and strategy. My 12th hour of strategy is pretty terrible. My second hour of strategy is extremely valuable and useful. And I've gotten to the point where I've said, you know what, I'm going to give that, you know, however many hours where it's valuable and useful. The rest of the performance I'm not doing. And when I realized that, you know, I had all this extra energy, I had all this, again, creativity for new projects, I think it just really transformed what I felt like my love for my job was, or my love for my creative passions could be. It really just transformed my relationship again with myself. And so this company has allowed me to sort of demonstrate that. But I think, as people sort of think about why they got into any of this stuff in the first place, right? What about this was exciting to you when you were in college or in high school when you thought of this? And kind of just take it back to that essential, you know, nugget. Figure out what that looks like in the job market now, especially for folks who, you know, have been in the job market for 10, 20, 30 years. You might not know. You might be thinking, you know, oh my God, there's nothing out there for me. But again, this digital world, this remote working world, entrepreneurship, there's so many spaces where people are like finding that one little niche thing that no one offers that they really like, and, you know, charging for it. And I found a lot of people fear charging, you know, they fear charging for things they love. You know, it's like, oh no, this is a joy. You don't have to pay me. And I think you, above anyone else, has been like, nope. You have to charge for that. And no matter how uncomfortable it gets, I think the thing that really makes me sure that I need to charge for that is that I want to be able to sustainably do that for others 10, 20, 30 years from now. And if I'm burned out today because I'm doing it for free and I feel overworked and it's not really giving back, then, you know, I can pretty much ensure a really short lifespan, you know, of joy around that activity. So,
100%.
You know, it's huge.
Yeah, 100%. I think that you need to feel joy, and this sounds crude, but joy only comes when you are paid for it. And also, I always talk about exchange of energies. If someone hasn't paid for your services, they will not appreciate it because there has been no or very little exchange of services, energies rather. And so people who pay more appreciate more. That just goes without saying. It really is. And so I'm going to give an example here of a story that I read recently of this. I can't remember the individual's name, but he is this world-renowned, famous violinist, and he has this violin which costs like $300,000 or something ridiculous, right? It's, you know, it's a couple of 100 years old as well. And so when he plays for these these sessions or whatever these events, he charges, I think, a ridiculous amount, and a ticket to go and see him is around about $200 a month. Okay, and they did an experiment, and they had him use the same violin, which is over $300,000, and play in a I think near a tube station or something like that, like, you know, who's busking, right? Yeah. And the same person who people pay minimum of $200 to go and watch, when he was playing in that environment, okay, and he was doing for free and people were just paying him, I think he barely made like $10, and hardly anybody stood to listen to this person who is world renowned. Because he was doing it for free, he was doing it in that environment, nobody appreciated him, nobody paid him attention. And so when he did it, played the same exact piece in the, I think when he at his one of his events, he got a standing ovation. Yeah. So this really highlights, you know, you have to value your craft before other people value it. And the more they pay you for it, the more they value it, because they can see the value in it. When you offer it for a low price or for free, then people dismiss it and they're like, yeah, it's okay. You know, it's not that great.
Right. And it's also about finding people who will appreciate it, right?
100%,
you know, like people just, you know, walking by who are on their way to go get groceries, right? We're coming for the violin, right? Like, sure, it's great, but that's not what they're here for.
Exactly.
And I think that's one of the things that, you know, as people think about entrepreneurship, they often are really discouraged by those moments when they're not well paid because essentially they were on the subway tracks when they should have been in the theater. Right?
Exactly, 100%. Yeah.
You know, and that comes with being the lighthouse for the right types of clients, right?
100%,
doing prospecting correctly for people who truly need your services, who are willing to pay for it, who value your time and attention, and who really appreciate. And you know, and I hear you in terms of like how much you charge. And I think sometimes people are afraid to charge what they really deserve because, like you said, they're in the subway, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So you get used to being underpaid. You get used to, especially, you know, in writing, there are a billion writers. Right? You can go on Fiverr right now and you'll find somebody who charges, you know, $5 an article. And maybe that works for some people's businesses, not for the ones that I serve. But you know, hey, there's a client for everybody. And I think that's really important as people start to build, you know, businesses, is just thinking about who do you want to serve, right? Who can you serve that's going to appreciate you, compensate you well, and that you can over deliver to them, right? I always think like, I think I'm charging, you know, I get freaked out with pricing. It still does it. Like 3 years later, I still freak out at how much.
Well, remember the phrase I always say, always aim to give 10 times in value back or any money received. And so if you are aiming to give what, you know, the same value back that you charged, it's not the same thing. But if you aim to give 10 times in value back, that is when you're over delivering, and you should. No doubt about it.
And I think it's, you know, as an owner of a business, again, you have to really know your industry, right? You have to know what value looks like truly, right? It's not, again, it's not overwriting or, you know, staying on the client call for extra hours necessarily. Sometimes it's giving them what they don't even know they need, right?
100%.
It's helping them boost their business in ways they've never even thought of. So I think all of those, you know, again, just go back to valuing yourself, you know, valuing your time, even that time that you're not spent in the moment with a client, that research, that, you know, building up your own skill set, developing yourself as an entrepreneur benefits everybody that you work with or you serve. And so all of that needs to be part of, you know, your compensation structure and your own energy level that you really have to value it and appreciate it. It's part of being a business owner.
Fabulous. On that note, we're going to wrap it up. What's your parting comments for someone who's thinking about, you know, creating their life, but they get disillusioned for exactly the same reason? You know, they don't find the right clients and they don't think they're charging enough, and then they get afraid of charging more. You know, what's your parting comments to individuals who are on the journey of creating a life by design?
I think you have to be willing to throw away all the playbooks. You know, often when people start a business, they say, you know, you're going to have 100 rejections. You just need one yes. And I think that's true for every aspect of designing your life, right? Whether that's, you know, you want to have the perfect spouse, right? You can date 100 people, but you just have to find that one yes, right? You have to find what works for you and lean into that and really embrace it. Again, like, know what brings you energy, know what brings you positivity, and don't just ignore it because it doesn't look the way everybody says it would. When it comes to really just owning your own stuff, right? Owning your own stuff and knowing your own gifts, it's going to look very unique. Entrepreneurship journeys are really messy. They tend to be things that people are going to tell you no and tell you you're crazy a lot. I get it all the time. People are like, oh my God, you're crazy for doing that thing. And it works out, and it's risk-taking, right? But it's calculated risk-taking. So as much as I can ask people to really just affirm themselves, affirm their own journey, and take stock of what brings them positivity and energy, I think if you keep going with that, you can't go wrong.
Wonderful, wonderful. And so tell us, Nafisa, how can we connect with you? Where can you find you on the internet?
Sure. I am easiest to find on my website, which is nafisaallen.com. And there you'll find my bilingual children's books, some of my client work with magazines, as well as some of the ghostwriting that I do for funders and founders. Otherwise, I'm also on Instagram and Twitter at my handle, The Blackspat, BLAXPAT.
Wonderful. So if you are listening to us on the podcast, the links for Nafisa will be in the show notes. And if you're watching on YouTube, then down below in the description section. You'll have the links for Nafisa to go check her out. She's one kick-ass lady. I know because I've worked with her and she's worked with me as a client, and she is fabulous. And so I know everything that she's talking about through most of the stuff we've been through together. But I know the quality of her work. So definitely check her out and see how she can support you in your business. Well, thank you so much for coming, Nafisa. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Thank you for sharing your insights with us.
Thank you for having me, Gul.
And thank you for listening to me, Nafisa, today on Money Talkies. I will be back with another amazing guest, finding out how you and I can build a better business. Until the next time we meet, this is Gul Khan signing off. Take care and bye for now.